Hey guys, thanks for swinging by the Hitchen Post. My name is Brian Hitchen, and today I wanted to go over this piece that I've been working on with you. Basically, I realized I really need to improve as an artist. I'm going to be redoing this old piece I did about 2 years ago of a few of my favorite characters, the Phantom, Doc Savage, and the Shadow. Really cool characters, but the reason why I'm redoing this piece is one, I enjoy drawing these characters for starters. um, but also this piece is kind of indicative of what I feel like are my shortcomings as an artist. It wasn't planned. It started out as just little character doodles, and then I just kind of liked it and started to ink and color with no real plan at all. The colors are, flats, nothing crazy. Excuse me, they were three separate drawings, and then I collaged them together into one piece. So with this new one that I'm starting today, I'm really going to take my time. I'm going to create a thumbnail sketch that's planned out. I'm going to do a grayscale painting, which I've never done before. So I'm going to do a grayscale. Hopefully that will help with my coloring, because again, I don't color very often. My stuff is usually black and white. So hopefully that'll make for a better colored piece. And I'm going to try to take my time. That's another problem I have, is I get very impatient and I get straight to detail without any of the structural stages that's required for a decent piece. So yeah, I hopefully this is a learning experience for you as it is for me. And so let's get started. Alrighty guys, so this was quite the learning experience. I'm recording this after the fact, so I'm kind of reminiscing on what I just did. Man, I tried my darndest, but yeah, I definitely still have a lot to learn. So yeah, right here I'm just trying to use reference. It's kind of amazing how, even though I planned this, it still changed in quite a few ways. You'll see here in a little bit. Right here, you're kind of seeing how most of my drawings start out, regardless of how I do it. It's usually always a very light sketch. By light, I mean I turn down the opacity so then I can ink over it. I have a very comic book style. Comic books are what I've always wanted to do my whole life, and that's kind of what my style is styled after. So here I'm just now attempting to do the grayscale, and I was having computer issues there. Yeah, this being my first time, man, I kind of struggled with how to start it. I just kind of started blocking in with solid gray midtones. And even though I I really tried, I feel like I really in the end only used about 2 or 3 different values. I had a dark value, a midtone value, and then a lighter one. That's just kind of the way it happened. I'm still not sure how to blend things very well. I basically just keep using pressure sensitivity to get everything done, with maybe a little bit of the smudge tool. But yeah, I'm very much a novice when it comes to blending shades and tones together. But in the end, I'm fairly happy with the way the Phantom's face turned out here. It's just that, well, you'll see in the end here what it winds up being. I will say what's interesting is, even though I tried to plan this as much as I could, I still definitely have some issues with basic anatomy. This is a very comic book looking aesthetic here, which is fine. It's just that I don't know. I'm not too satisfied with it, because the pose here is kind of a. He's supposed to be kind of leaning forward a little bit like that. But all it really looks like is that I've lowered the head on his body to where it's coming out of here, because the rest of the body doesn't really look like he's leaning forward too much. At least in my opinion. And then you've got some issues with arm size. One arm's larger than the other. And again, you know, one of my biggest problems is I get tunnel vision. Once I have the form down, I zoom way in to get a ton of detail. I do love working in detail, as most people probably do. I love texturing and stuff like that, so it's just a shame, you know. And here's one thing where I'm doing, you know, I used to be, my whole life I was so adverse to using references, because, you know, my peers are like, wow, did you look at anything to do that drawing, or how, you know? And I'm just like, nope, that's all me, you know. And it's, I in hindsight, I really, it's unfortunate that I took what my peers said so seriously, as if that was some sort of arbiter for whether I was good or not, you know. It's like I would get the same things over and over since grade school, because even in grade school I could draw fairly well, and they'd always be like, wow, that took you how long, and you didn't look at anything to do that. And so I had this like mentality of, because I did it so quickly and because all of it is completely out of my head, that it was automatically good, and because I could make it look fairly cool, that was all that I needed. And I usually only looked at other comic book artists to learn how to do something. So it's taken me a long time to realize that no, I need to study life. I need basic fundamentals and anatomy and perspective and composition. Composition I kind of have a good sense of, but again, you know, I'm always learning. I'm always definitely have room for improvement. So here's what's really interesting, and here's where I think I did grow a little bit. Right here, where I'm drawing Doc Savage, the whole time I'm drawing this, I'm really frustrated. I'm not happy with the face. I'm not happy with the pose. I don't think the pose is weird. You know, I've got this like tangent with the knuckles and the shoulder. It's not a good silhouette, that's for sure. And I was just like, I had that feeling where, you know, nothing you're really trying to draw is really looking good at all, and you got to take a break. So here I'm just like, oh, screw it, I'm gonna start inking the Phantom here. I was pretty disappointed. And then I started getting disappointed because I'm like, inking, I ink everything, or at least I outline everything. And here I kind of feel like maybe I should not have, because I was pretty happy with my grayscale of the Phantom, and then when I ink him, all of that is pretty much gone. Most of the values basically disappear. Here I'm just trying to figure out my tablet settings. Frickin' thing wouldn't work. So anyways, I'm like, okay, I need to actually sit down and rethink this. So I got another document open to the side here. I'm re-sketching the Doc Savage pose and picking one that looks good, that goes well with the composition, that's a bit more dynamic. And I'm a lot happier with it. That's not something I would normally do. Usually I would get to this point in my piece and I would just say screw it, and I would either not finish, or I would just keep going with what I didn't like, and just wind up feeling pretty awful afterwards. Like, oh, I can't do anything. So the fact that I went back to the drawing board, redid this pose, didn't use the thumbnail as gospel. I think that's another problem that me and maybe a lot of other beginning artists have, is that they use the thumbnail as the as the end all blueprint for the drawing, and it can't stray from that blueprint at all. So I'm pretty happy that I went back to the drawing board and I redid a completely different pose that works a lot better. And I started to feel a lot better about this piece in general, because that was really getting me down. I'm like, it's not looking good. Shows that I still have a lot to learn. And again, like with perspective and anatomy, you can really see here, that face, man. I don't know. It's the underlying structure, particularly the jaw, seems to melt into his neck. I'm not quite sure what it is. I know part of it is you're not seeing under the jaw, even though it's you're seeing it from a worm's eye view. I do think it's an improvement over the old drawing, however, but still. But yeah, now at this point I'm very happy, and so I'm moving on to the shadow. And that was a really cool accident right there, where I'm shading it in, and I accidentally had the eye wasn't covered up, and I'm like, oh man, that's like the Shadow movie, where whenever he would use his telepathic powers.
You're not going to appoint a task force.
No, hell with it.
You'd have that light across the eye, so I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to employ that. So that was kind of a happy accident. It was serendipitous. So yeah, now I'm just trying to move stuff around, and the cloak over the mouth didn't quite turn out the way I wanted to. I wasn't sure how to do it, and again, I need to get in the habit of looking at references, because what I wanted was, I don't think anybody's ever drawn the shadow where it looks like he's obviously laughing, because he's always laughing, you know, that's kind of his trademark. He has that horrific cackle while he's intimidating his enemies. But for the cloak, or the scarf here, whatever you want to call it, I wanted the shadows on there to make it look like he has a wide open mouth. And not quite like a Joker smile, but I wanted it to make it look like he's laughing, and so it would be really stretched in the middle, and maybe you would even see the shadow of teeth and stuff. But yeah, I don't know, it didn't really work out that way, and I kind of nixed that idea. So here I am adding detail to Doc Savage, and again, I think for the most part it's pretty good. I think that's the thing about my drawings. Individual things work pretty well. I'm able to get the aesthetics down. But when you look at it as a whole, it's like the pieces of the face aren't flowing together. This arm in that perspective doesn't look well with the perspective of the body that's attached to it. Again, this one's not too bad. It's mainly the arm on the right that I have a problem with, and I eventually do erase the hand and the forearm there, just because I could not get it to look right. And like his arm is way too off camera anyways. There you go. Might as well just delete it. Yeah, and the other thing is too, I kind of forgot what I was doing with the background. I was going to have a lot of jungle stuff going on there, and because I had completely covered my thumbnail, I kind of forgot what my original intent was. So there's a lot of negative space left over, and so you just have this black, which in hindsight I probably should have had some sort of layer of atmosphere to kind of blend it up to black, up closer to where the shadow is, because now the Phantom is halfway drenched in black, and later when I add the shadows on him, he's going to completely blend into the background. He gets lost in the shadow's shadow. He's wearing black boots. He's got a lot of deep blacks on the shadows on his legs and his arms. And the gun that I bothered to find the perfect image of is completely lost in the black. So yeah, it's funny. Even with all my planning, I still didn't quite take the correct steps to ensure that it came out the way it should have. Part of that was frustration. Part of it was it was taking a lot longer than I wanted to. I think this piece overall took me about 5 hours, which is a lot longer than I normally take on any of my drawings. And again, the fact that I started with a thumbnail and painted in grayscale and then inked and colored to completion says quite a lot. And hopefully this is the start of something new with me, because I rarely finish pieces. When I do, it's just a single character or a few with a blank background. Composition really isn't taken into consideration. I kind of like the way this looks in black and white. I should have kept it black and white, and to be honest, for the era that these characters come from, that probably would have worked really well. I'm curious what you guys think about the coloring job, though. Again, I never color, and when it came time to put the color layer on top of this grayscale, I feel like it kind of helped. I know that I'm not doing it properly. I literally set my layer to color, and so it didn't cover up any of the values. But you know, one thing I have heard a lot of people say, the problem with grayscale painting is that you still, even though you've got the lighting and shading down, you still don't have the tones that you need to use. So, I mean, the skin tones here are kind of all over the place. It's really... I had tried to incorporate some blue at some point, but that was a little too advanced for me. So I basically just stuck with one color tone and then just did darker versions of that same tone, unfortunately. So in the end, it kind of wound up being what I typically always do. I mean, I still think the piece is stronger because of the grayscale. But yeah, just the fact that I'm using a reference here kind of says a lot. It's taken me a while to get past that stigma of using reference, because I always felt like it wasn't mine. Oh, it's not coming from me. You know, I'm copying something, or I have to reference something else. So it's not really from me, but that's something that I really need to get over. And I feel like I'm on the right track there with this. The fact that I used it for the wolf and the gun. I should have used it for Doc Savage for his skull, probably. And I maybe should have used references for that little quasi-tree shrubbery thing at the bottom. It's kind of a made-up plant. I'm happy with the rocks, though. I was using this oil brush that made it really easy to lay down those forms. But yeah, this is typically how I color things. You know, and the coloring might be stronger if the forms were stronger, but yeah, I was really struggling with what to do with the skin tone for Doc Savage, and then I just basically try to add in highlights, but this is not the most polished thing I've ever done, that's for sure. And I've kind of helped my problem that I was having with the perspective of the Phantom's anatomy. The fact that he's supposed to be kind of lurching forward a little bit. And I kind of fixed that by having a lot of shadows under the pecs and the rib cage area and the top of the abdomen. So it kind of looks like that's a bit more recessed, and that he's cast, the top part of this section is casting a shadow on the lower part there. So that kind of helped, I think. I think his hands might be too big too. Again, the fact that this actually has a background, and the fact that they're actually standing on something is quite the baby step for me. And again, I think part of the problem here is that I still it not only does it look like a comic book, particularly the coloring looks like the lowest common denominator of comic book art. Everything is so well lit and Technicolor primary colors kind of a thing. That's definitely something that I need to work on for sure. So anyway, guys, I really hope that this was a learning experience for you as it was for me. I feel like I'm already improving a little bit. Yeah, so stick around if you'd like to see more like this. I try to cover all kinds of things. My paintings, my animations, comic books. I even get into storytelling and movies, stuff like that, maybe even video games. So yeah, if you liked what you saw here, thumbs up and subscribe and all that jazz. And I'll be seeing you guys again shortly. Take it easy. Bye.